110 grain 357 Magnum. Is that a bad idea? And it's an interesting question here. And I have some Remington HTP 357 Magnum 110 grain semi-jacketed hollow point. And these things are rated at 1295 feet per second, which is actually only 410 foot-pounds energy. Why is it rated so low? And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that full house, full power 357 Magnum in 110 grain really doesn't exist very often because it's pretty damaging to the firearms. What you got is a bullet, it's lighter, so it's shorter. If you have a full powered blast behind that, what's going to happen is that bullet is going to enter that forcing cone before the rest of that charge has to go off, and it's going to basically blow out your cylinder gap and really do some flame cutting, stuff like that. It can also cause bullet creep in lighter revolvers. So it makes a lot of sense why you really normally don't see full house 357 Magnum in 110 grain. Now I've seen them in like Corbon ammo, and also if we saw them in solid copper ammo, it would make more sense as well though, because copper is less dense. The bullet would basically be as long as a 125 grain because it's copper. But 110 grain, you know, pretty much you're delegated to stay at that, you know, 1300 feet per second. Because if you were to put a full house charge in this where you got max pressure, you would be looking more like 1700 feet a second. So this may or may not be good ammo, but what I really want to know is it controllable? Is it more controllable than a lot of other ammo? And I know there's a lot of revolvers, those little alloy ones that have like titanium cylinders. They say no less than 120 grain. And I think part of that is due to full house loads that are 110 grain, and I think possibly a lighter load like this, which is kind of the industry standard now, would be a little bit better for a revolver like that. But you know, that's for you to determine. If you have those guns, you know, put 5 rounds in, you know, fire a round, take a look at the rest, fire another round, take a look at the rest, and so on. So I'm going to test this though in my 4-inch and my 2-inch barrel. I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time, and then most importantly, kind of get an assessment what I think that recoil is like. And then I'm going to do my standard ballistic test here. We have 4 layers of denim, followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics, represent hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch MDF to represent hitting ribs or sternum, and to more clear ballistics. With the MDF in place, it pretty much equals this out to being very similar to organic ballistic gelatin, not clear ballistics. But for me, I like to use it because it simulates hitting a rib or sternum, kind of simulates a chest shot. So I'm going to do a shot with the MDF for a chest shot, and pull it out, do a shot without the MDF for a quote-unquote gut shot, and then I'm going to shoot from 25 yards like I normally do at my full-size steel silhouette, just to kind of see what kind of practical accuracy I can get with these rounds. So let's get started with this test. All right, I'm about 5 yards from the target, about 4 yards from the chronograph. First up, I'm going to do my 4-inch barrel Smith & Wesson 686. We'll see how close we get to that 1295 feet per second. See what kind of felt recoil I feel on this. 1432, wow. 1508. 1498. 1486. 1470. So it appears that they changed their formula a little bit here, and that may become problematic. I don't know why they have it like that, but I'm going to try to pull out another one of these rounds and get an idea here if there's any pull on here. I really wasn't expecting it to be that way, but you know, candler looks a little bit higher, but I'm not 100% sure here. So that is interesting. I'm going to try the 2-inch barrel now. Now something like this I definitely would want to keep an eye on if there's any bullet creep. So let me look at my last round here. Was not expecting that to do it that way. It had that much velocity. So 2-inch barrel, see what we get. 1257. I'll read. This is actually shutting the laser off. I'll read. And I guess guess I'll turn the laser off. It's not reading at all except that first one. The last round in this doesn't look too bad as far as, you know, any excess of that bullet creep. So let me try to run a few more. Generally when this happens, it's because there's too much flash. The barrel is too short, so a lot of that powder that would be burned up in the extra 2 inches of that 4-inch barrel is actually coming out the muzzle, and that's putting light, you know, and that's why we're seeing numbers like that. That's light reads. So let me move back to like 7 yards and see if I can get a couple more reads. All right, I'd say I'm about 8 yards, so I'm gonna do some single action here. See if I can get any actual reads now. 1252. 1266. One more look at this. Yeah, I don't see any creep on this. You know, this gun is about 20 ounces, so I wouldn't expect it anyways. But it's good to be sure. 1242. So that's very interesting that they're listed at $12.95, but yet they're hitting up there like a full power load. So that is something I would keep my eye on, because that could cause some flame cutting in your revolvers if you fire too many of them. So personally, I would not use these as my target rounds. I would not, you know, buy a bunch of them. They are kind of cheap. I would be very careful about that, but they should be a good defensive round if you do hit your mark. So let's start our ballistics gel block and see what we get with these rounds. All right, first up, 4-inch barrel. So I'm gonna fire a round through the MDF, and then I'm gonna pull out really quick and fire one without the MDF. So it'll be like, first shot is our chest shot, second shot is our gut shot. So 357 mag 110 and our 4-inch barrel. All right, no MDF, just a gut shot. All right, so what we're looking at here, through our MDF, we definitely had expansion at first 3 inches. That's a lot more than what I normally see. There's definitely fragmentation in both the quote-unquote MDF shot, quote-unquote ribs and sternum shot, and the quote-unquote gut shot, both of them. So with our MDF, we have a total damage path of 11.5 inches, and with our plain clear ballistics, we have a penetration of about 13 3/4. So it's consistent across the board, at least there. That's not too bad. Let's try our 2-inch barrel. All right, 2-inch barrel through our MDF. See how it does. Here's our gut shot. All right, so what we're seeing there is a little bit less, just probably kind of what you might think you would see. You know, definitely a lot of expansion going on in that first 3 inches with both barrel lengths here. Here is through our MDF here. And what you might expect, just a little bit less, you know, because we're moving out closer to 1300 and this is closer to 1500 feet per second. So definitely a difference there. Less fragmentation with the 2-inch barrel. You know, the one up here with our plain gel looks like a massively expanded one, and we lost a little bit of that expansion, it looks like, with our MDF. But with our MDF, what we're looking at is about 10.5 inches, and with our plain gel, we're looking at about 11 inches. So not a major difference there. You know, it's kind of hard to see sometimes from my angles. A lot of people say, hey, you're shooting through the same path, until you move it up like this and see, no, I'm going a good distance apart there. So on the top here, you know, these are plain gel shots. You can see our plain gel shot with our 4-inch barrel is significantly deeper than with our 2-inch barrel. If I look from the other side here, and here's our MDF, and our 2-inch barrel is on top. Our 4-inch barrel is on the bottom here. So not a major difference with that MDF, except, You know, it looks like a little bit bigger expansion with the 4-inch barrel. So overall, you know, I would like to see a little bit more penetration with a given round, but those are moving really fast and those are expanding really big, and that counts for something. So let's shoot from that 25 yards, see what we get with these rounds. All right, 25 yards from the target. I got a 10-inch gong right there in the middle. Let me see if I can hit that. All right, that's not too bad. And I really don't see any flame cutting yet. It would take a lot more rounds than that anyways. But there definitely seem to be hitting point of aim and impact at 25 yards. They seem to shoot pretty well. So, get my 2-inch barrel here. This laser's being kind of finicky, so I guess I'm not going to use that. Let's see what we get. I'm going to back it up. These seem to be shooting really well for me. I'll back it up all the way to 75 yards just for the fun of it. I got several more rounds of these. If you've ever wondered, I've just used stakes for markers. I measured these out with the tape, you know, a year ago or so. So I got 25, 50, and 75. All right, 75 yards. I like the way these shot so far at 25. 4-inch barrel. See how it does at 75. I think they were just shooting a little bit low for me, just a hair. And I got a couple more rounds here for this 4-inch barrel if I can get them out of my pocket here. And I'll aim just a little bit higher. Basically, when I started hitting, I was aiming, you know, very top of that gong. So, a couple more here for the 4-inch. I pulled that one pretty high. I'm curious how far this laser will go out that I can see it. Yeah, I could never see it that distance. So, hard plastic grips, 2-inch barrel, 357. This is not going to be easy. It should bolt up a little bit from recoil. So I guess I'm just going to aim right below the plate, or the gong. Oh, dang Taurus trigger. Shoots fine with my other revolvers, but it hooks under my skin. Jerks them. So I have no idea where those are hitting. I'm gonna go single action. That should help me get an idea where I'm at, maybe. I aimed right on the middle. That's all I did. Going a little low also. Aim for the headshot, see what happens. I have no idea where that is. So, my review of this ammo, the first thing I'm seeing here and wonder about is why are these full house loads, basically? They're shooting a lot like they have 125 grain powder loads in them. You know, you would reduce your pressure a little bit over a 125 grain, but because it's a 110, you'd still, you know, you would hit about 1500 feet per second. So I think they got a little bit more, too much powder in those, because, you know, a typical load like this is supposed to be, you know, 1300 feet per second or less out of a 4-inch barrel. That's how they're supposed to be loaded, so you don't get flame cutting. So why that did that, I have no idea. But judging from what I'm seeing here, and I forgot to mention the recoil. The recoil wasn't bad. That's the main takeaway here that I have to get out of the way. Okay, normal 357 Magnum, anywhere from 125 to 158 or beyond, you always feel this really hard, like baseball bat feeling in your hand, like you're hitting a tree, like boom. You feel it in your wrist, like boom. And the more weight you go up, the more you feel it in your wrist going up. With this, it didn't feel much different than like a 38 plus P. In fact, it's actually less recoil than a lot of the heavier 38 plus Ps. You know, you get that blast, but you don't get that muzzle rise, you don't get that wrist snap, you don't get that, you know, baseball bat feeling in your hand. It had very, very, very manageable recoil. And considering that, coupled with the ballistic performance, I'm gonna say it's a good round, because even for me, my confidence went up. I'm not the best shot in the world, but I'm experienced. And even for me, that 110 grain boosted my confidence to the level where I felt like I could not miss, because I'm not expecting that recoil. I'm not jerking those shots because that recoil isn't there. So I would say, considering that, this is a good round, because maybe your ballistic performance isn't as good as a 158 grain full house. You're more likely to hit your target, and that's going to do a lot better than a better performing 158 grain, in my opinion. So I think it did quite well. So that's what you get today, 110 grains. Kind of an odd weight for 357 mag, but these seem to do fine. So that's what you get. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.